Good morning, Tim Bumgarner. I'm the long-term fire analyst with Northern Rockies team. Normally, my job is to project what the fire is going to do as far as growth, how fast it's going to grow, where it's going to grow, and what values may be impacted. So there's four areas we're actually focusing on today that provide potentially significant fire growth here and into the future. The energy of the fire is fragmented to the point where we've got to focus on these four areas. That doesn't mean that there's not a lot of heat that now across the fire. It's 95,000+ acres, and there's areas of unburned fuels in there as well. Those four areas are concentrated in here, and this area right here along Trail Creek, and then the confluence of the river and the creek. But today I want to kind of talk about what's going on in the future and how we can kind of predict the ultimate question of when is this thing going to end. So I've got a chart to kind of show you some of these things that we use, looking for signals on how we can kind of answer that question. So we'll go over to the chart. So start off here at the bottom. This is a 8 to 14 day temperature outlook. Color of red just shows that we are predicted to be above normal. That does not mean it's going to be 1 degree or 10 degrees or 20 degrees above normal. It's just projected through the Climate Prediction Center that the temperatures will be above normal for the next 2 weeks. Likewise, over here with the 8 to 14 day precipitation, we're in the below normal. Same thing. It doesn't say how much or when that may or may not dissipate, but through the projection period for 2 weeks, it's looking pretty dry. So you put those two together and we're kind of in the same pattern we saw. We don't have the thunderstorms developing right now. We're going to build back with a little more high pressure system, and that's still going to keep the fire pretty settled down. So it's all going to be fuels, topography growth, no wind driven growth projected now for the next couple of weeks. Likewise, we use these signals for the energy release component. This is for the 20-year period of these two stations. Now this is on the northwest side of the fire, and down on the other side is the salmon on the southeast side. So when you put those two together, we're kind of given a pretty good overview of what the entire fire is wanting to do. For those that aren't familiar with this, these trace values, red is the historic maximum, the gray is the average, the blue is the minimum over this 20-year period here, and the dashed line is where we are right now. So you can see we're hovering right along the 90th percentile. The key message I want to emphasize between these two is the same downward trend. Likewise, over here at the Salmon Rise, that's the remote automated weather system. All these remote weather stations that have been collecting data for several decades, we use that to look for these traces and trends. Same thing, maximum, average, minimum, current year. So we're kind of in this timeline right here, and the trend is we're kind of at the peak of the fire season and we're starting to go down. So the daylight is going to be getting less and less, 3 minutes a day. So you do that over the course of a 2-week period, which is a typical rotation of an incident management team. That's 42 minutes, and that makes a big difference. As you get the humidity recovery each night, the high energy slopes south and west, they're going to heat up quicker and the humidity will drop much faster. Likewise, on the north and east slopes, they will be much longer to dry out. So you're not going to have the dryness across the entire landscape like you did just two weeks ago or so. The last graph is a season ending probability. So that takes information from the fire and tries to generate something to give us an idea through probability of when this is going to be a season ending event. And that season ending event is defined by a 60% PRC rate. And what that's saying is once this graph drops, once this current year drops below 60%, and it doesn't recover, that's considered a season ending event. So from this graph, we generate 50% chance September 20th, 75% September 29th. So that just gives you some information of the signals that we use with the weather information that's generated for the forecasters, as well as this historic information. Try to give the forest an idea of when we can say this is done.